Trump stood at West Point not just to inspire cadets, but to plant his ideological flag. From glorifying American wars to attacking diversity in the military, this wasn't just a commencement speech. It was a political battle cry in uniform. But who exactly was he rallying, and who was he silencing?
For 2.5 centuries, our republic has endured because of heroes like Michael. They've laid down their lives for America, and because young people like all of you have picked up the banner of service and carried forward the flag of freedom from Lexington to Yorktown, from Gettysburg to Sicily, and from Incheon to Fallujah. America has been won and saved by an unbroken chain of soldiers and patriots who ran to the sound of the guns, leapt into the maw of battle, and charged into the crucible of fire to seize the crown of victory, no matter the odds, no matter the cost, no matter the danger. All over the world, our soldiers have made sacred the ground where they shed their blood and showed their valor. From Seminary Ridge to San Juan Hill, Belleau Wood, Omaha Beach, Leyte Gulf, and Ardennes Forest, Chosin Reservoir, all over, and even a place called Pork Chop Hill. And in all of those battles and so many more, some of the best, brightest, and bravest have come from right here at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, one of the great fabled places anywhere in the world. America's Army has never failed us, and with leaders like the West Point class of 2025, the Army will never fail. We will never let you down. And over the last week, I had the honor of speaking to the heads of many countries, and they would say, 2 weeks ago, they say the 8th, they said, "Sir, we're celebrating the victory today of World War II." And I said, "Wow, that's nice." Then I'd call another one, unrelated. "Sir, we're celebrating the victory of World War II." Then I called up President of France on something also unrelated. He said, "Sir, we're celebrating our victory over World War II." I said, "Whoa, whoa, what have we here?" We helped them a lot. And I had this. Russia, I talked to Putin about ending that terrible war that's going on, and he said they're having a big victory march. And they did lose, in all fairness, 51 million people. But they were all celebrating. The only country that wasn't celebrating was the United States of America. And I said, "Isn't it amazing? We were the ones that won the war, and we were helped. We were helped. In some cases, we had to help them. But we were helped by some of the nations, and we were strongly helped by a couple of them. But every one of them was celebrated. They had Victory Day. They called it Victory Day in Europe, Victory Day all over. And we weren't even thought about. Nobody had a Victory Day. And so I named that special day and another special day from now on as a holiday, but a holiday where we work. Because we don't have enough days. We're going to be having so many holidays, we're not going to be able to work anymore. But I named it for World War II, and a separate day in November, as you know, for World War I. I said, you know, all of these countries that participated in the war are celebrating, but the greatest country of them all, and the country that won the war, nobody even talked about. And so we're going to be talking about it, too, from now on. And I think you'll appreciate it. We won the First World War. We won the Second World War. And you know where we won them from? Right here at West Point. West Point won the war. You won 2 world wars and plenty of other things. But you think of it. We don't want to have a 3rd World War. But we won the First World War. We won the Second World War right here from West Point. And that's something. And we're going to be talking about it. You know, they can talk about it. And in some cases, as you know, they didn't do too much to help. They were ground down, but they were celebrating victory. No, we're going to celebrate victory because we're the ones that won that war. Standing before you today, I know that you will never stop. You will never quit. You will never yield. You will never tire. You will never, ever, ever surrender, never give up. Remember that, never give up. That's another little factor I could have added. Never, ever give up. Raise your right hand. I pledge I will never, ever give up. You can never give up. You can never give up. If you do, you're not going to be successful because you'll go through things that will be bad. You're going to have great moments. You're going to have bad moments. You can never give up. Through every challenge and every battle, you'll stand strong. You'll work hard. You'll stay tough. And you will fight, 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 and win, win, win. So I want to just congratulate you all. I'm going back now to deal with Russia, to deal with China. What's that all about? That's it. And to get you lots of victories. We're going to keep winning. This country is going to keep winning. And with you, the job is easy. I want to thank you all. Congratulations to the class of 2025. God bless you all. Incredible people. Thank you very much, everybody.
Trump's rhetoric is drenched in glory, blood, and banners. But listen closer. This isn't just history, it's a rewriting. By declaring that we won World War I and World War II from West Point, Trump places the military not just as a defender of democracy, but as its origin. This isn't patriotism, it's militarized nationalism. And his declaration of new victory days, that's not honoring veterans. It's revising the calendar to glorify himself.
All right, that's President Donald Trump addressing graduates at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. The president there at some points having fun with the crowd there and the cadets, inviting a few of them up on stage. At points, this was a commencement address for cadets. At other points, it was a political rally. The president on and off prompter at points. Our senior White House reporter Kevin Liptak joins us live. You're there at the commencement. Long speech, a little short of an hour here. Give us some highlights.
CNN's Kevin Liptak calls it, "This was half graduation, half Trump rally." The mingling of military tradition and political theater blurs the line of neutrality. When the commander-in-chief turns a cadet ceremony into a campaign platform, the message is clear. Service to country must now mean service to Trump.
Yeah, and I think this was a speech that really kind of combined the traditional commencement speech. He talked to these 1,002 cadets who will soon become second lieutenants in the U.S. Army about his advice, about how he sort of sees them carrying out their mission going forward. He called out individuals in the crowd. It was also, as you pointed out, something of a political speech in some moments when the president clearly had gone off the teleprompter. It's always interesting to see how those land outside of a political setting. It was well received in the stadium, but certainly not sort of an overwhelming crowd like you might hear at a rally when, for example, the president talked about his election victory in November, the mandate that he says he has, going into some of the grievances that he has about the investigations that were carried out into him during his time out of office. I think the real substance of this speech, though, was when the president was talking about his efforts to remake the U.S. military, whether it was talking about these reinvestments. He's just put forward a request for a $1 trillion military budget. That's a record number, about a 13% increase from the previous figure. Talks about the Iron Dome, talks about making ships and planes in the United States. That's one area where he's trying to remake the military. The other is in this effort to try and rid the Pentagon and service academies like West Point of what he calls absurd ideological experiments. He's talking about efforts to get rid of diversity initiatives within the U.S. military. He spoke about that at quite some length, saying that his efforts had liberated the troops from diversity trainings. He talked specifically about, for example, getting rid of drag shows at the service academies. You know, that has been a controversial effort, including here at West Point. And I was just watching some of the faculty members when the president was talking about that. They sort of belied no expression, but this has been something of a sticking point. You have had at least one faculty member resign from West Point. You have seen the certain number of affinity groups being disbanded on campus at the president's directive. At other service academies, you've seen books pulled from the libraries that don't necessarily accord with the president's viewpoints. And so that, I think, was the real meat of this speech, as the president talks about these efforts to really reform the military. And he's worked at great speed to do that since coming into office. He also talked about the effort of peace through strength, really going after some of his predecessors for what he called nation building. It's very clear that this president has a very different viewpoint of how to use the military, of how the commander-in-chief should employ the military abroad. And certainly that was his message to these graduates as they now go from being cadets to second lieutenants in the U.S. Army, joining, as the president called it, that long gray line. Victor.
CNN's Liptak didn't just report. I saw him sound a 5-alarm fire. Trump's West Point address? Not a graduation speech, but a sinister culture war declaration disguised in military regalia. After a few phony pleasantries, the real Trump erupted. Grievances, election lies, a toxic MAGA rant before future leaders. This wasn't celebration. I call it a chilling call to arms against dissent. Liptak exposed Trump's terrifying $1 trillion purification project, not rebuilding the military, but cleansing it of ideological experiments. Translation: no diversity, no challenging books, no affinity groups, just MAGA conformity. He even brags about liberating troops, like some tin pot dictator. Faculty silenced, one resigned, books purged. West Point, I tell you, is now a bloody battleground in Trump's war on a diverse America. This isn't reform, it's a fascist purge, plain and simple.
Good morning to you. Colonel, let me start with you, because this day is about those cadets, soon to be officers. The president said instead of spreadsheets and stock options, they chose honor and sacrifice. This was a speech to members of the U.S. military, to future leaders of the U.S. military. So in that context, your assessment of what you heard from the president, some of it true, some of it clearly not.
Yeah, Victor, it's it's very interesting when you listen to the totality of this speech. There were some elements where he definitely, was lauding the service and sacrifice of the cadets as they now become second lieutenants. And of course, it's ironic when you compare it to some of the things that we heard about President Trump during his first term, where, we had the infamous suckers and losers comment attributed to him. But in this particular speech, one of the things that did stick out to me was the fact that he, I think for the first time, revealed that the United States had been working on hypersonic missile designs that he alleges the Russians stole. And that is something where he very briefly mentioned something that has absolute significance in terms of the warfighting capability. When you look at, how these cadets who will now become second lieutenants move forward into the Army, into a changed military, he's basically pointing the way for them to actually go ahead and become, in essence, drivers of change. And that, I think, was somewhat remarkable, because some of the changes that some of these people will want to institute may very well clash with the types of changes that the President and the Secretary of Defense have promulgated during this President Trump's second term.
So Liptak drops the West Point bombshell. Real reporting for once. And CNN's response? Trot out the experts, of course. Victor Blackwell politely introduces Colonel Cedric Layton and Ron Brownstein, the designated military and senior political analysts. Impressive titles, right? all designed to project authority. But I smell a rat. Are these heavyweights actually going to dissect Trump's fascist culture war declaration with the brutality it deserves? Or are we about to endure another tepid, establishment-coddling analysis, a carefully choreographed snooze fest? I am deeply skeptical. When our institutions are under siege, I demand raw truth, not polite whispers. Let's see if these talking heads deliver actual insight or just more predictable, toothless punditry. The nation is watching, and I won't be fooled by empty credentials.
Ron, this speech seemed to be pretty typical for a Trump speech. On prompter, off prompter. Yeah. Even the setting there at West Point, it became political. Alphonse Capone, Bill Levitt. At some points, you could have, slid the background out and put a "Make America Great Again" background, and it would have seemed at the appropriate place. What's your assessment from that political context of what we heard from the president today?
Victor, it was kind of a commencement speech grafted onto a rally speech. And to me, the tip-off was the hat at the beginning, wearing the hat with his campaign slogan in a setting that historically has been viewed as nonpartisan. And that is, I think, revealing of the larger question about Trump's relation with the military. And what we have seen across the federal government is Trump trying to exert personal control and put a personal ideological stamp on every aspect of the executive branch, including those that have traditionally been insulated from politics, whether it's the military and the kind of the way in which they have been enlisted into his ideological crusades on gender and race and banning transgender troops or involving them in the border, similar to what's happening with the Justice Department, breaking down the traditional barriers between direct presidential control and decisions, particularly about criminal investigations. I mean, what you saw this morning, had its kind of folksy moments and kind of meandering moments, but it was actually, I think, revealing of this larger project, which, has been called the unitary executive theory, in which the president is essentially asserting personal control and demanding personal loyalty and kind of personal following, from every aspect of the federal government, including those that traditionally have been kept apart from politics.
Ron Brownstein says it best. This wasn't just a speech. It was Trump flexing the unitary executive model, total ideological control, military neutrality, outside, personal loyalty, in. Wearing a MAGA hat at West Point is no accident. It's symbolism with sharp edges. Trump didn't just speak, he campaigned, legislated, and rewrote military ethos in one swoop. The question isn't whether he's patriotic. The question is, where does patriotism end and political personalization begin? Trump's West Point speech wasn't just a message to cadets. It was a message to the country. Drenched in patriotic fervor, but fueled by political motives, it blurred the lines between service to nation and loyalty to one man. From rewriting history with victory days to proposing a $1 trillion military revamp that eliminates diversity efforts, this wasn't a tribute, it was a takeover. When Trump rebrands military valor as ideological conformity, we have to ask, is this leadership or authoritarian performance? At the end of the day, this speech didn't unify, it divided. It didn't honor all Americans. It chose which ones to uplift and which to erase. What do you think? Is Trump rebuilding the military or repurposing it for personal gain? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe to Miles Vexler Reaction News, where we break down the noise one battle at a time. I'm Miles Vexler, and this is just the beginning.